Hello and welcome back to Processing the Process, where we capture and discuss the technical, psychological, and contextual dynamics that shape the process of creating a work of art. Week by week, moment by moment, we have been following Allie K. Dakers, teacher, actor, director, and producer, as she shapes the development of her innovative middle school drama club program and guides her students' idiosyncratic artistic journeys. Today, we will focus on, drumroll please, the final showcase of the year that everyone has worked so hard all year long to be able to produce and perform. So it occurred on May 31st, and I had the distinct pleasure of being able to be in attendance. And it was a particular thrill because I had the benefit of knowing all of the dynamics that had taken place in the 8 months leading up to the show. So I thought I would share with you today a few of my thoughts coming out of the show. And then, of course, we will go directly to Allie, who will dissect everything internally and externally for us today. So, interestingly, despite Allie's fears and doubts, which she has so candidly been sharing with us in many of our videocasts, I had a pretty strong feeling that the show was going to be okay. And believe it or not, I had that feeling because of you, Allie. And it sounds kind of odd, but when I went back and reviewed your notes for the tech rehearsals, and I took them and started to prepare the scripts for the tech rehearsal videocasts, I really heard that optimism in many of the things that you wrote. And I read it and I said to myself, it's going to be okay. And, sure enough, I was not surprised on the 31st to have that feeling confirmed when I watched the showcase. And I felt each element was in place, and the elements really did come together nicely. And especially the lighting and sound and musical interlude choices were very, very good. And it really enhanced the production and gave it added richness and depth and certainly a bit of professionalism. Now, one thought that came to me during the show was that what you see is what is. Now, what am I talking about here? Well, these kids are all young and just starting out in the field. So there's a wide variety that we know by now, of course, of creative abilities and different levels of theatrical experiences. And this is exactly what we saw reflected in the scenes in the showcase. And in particular, differences in skill levels were apparent in the ability of certain kids to project and others who had a bit of difficulty, and in the ability of the kids to inhabit their characters. Now, the transition between the scenes in which the kids were bringing props and set pieces on and off the stage was a bit loose, but I thought it was great that it was transparent to the audience as opposed to something that was hidden behind a closed curtain, because it really enabled the audience to observe these kids in the process literally right in the process of learning the role of crew member. And we could say, okay, no, it wasn't polished, but it's not where they are at this point in time. As I say once again, what we saw is what is.
I'm just glad nobody got hurt.
So, in closing for me, I did want to say that I thought that the opening scene performed its function very well.
It was cute.
It really set the stage and provided the context for all of the scenes to follow. Well, Allie, now that you've had a couple of days to breathe, I think quite literally,
yeah,
I'd like to get a sense of how you experienced the show, focusing on three things in particular. One would be which elements played out as you expected and which did not. Second, at what point in the show did it hit you that they're really going to pull this off?
Yeah.
And, number three, I'm loading her up today. Finally, how would you assess the scenes and the overall production? I'm sure we could probably speak for many hours, so just highlights are fine, so we're not further taxing you this evening.
Yeah. Well, first, just to comment on the transparency of the scene transitions.
Yes.
That's actually twofold in a way. It's lit, but it's a blue out, so it's very dim lighting, but enough for the kids to see. And the curtains are open, and a lot of times they open and close anyway to kind of like facilitate movement of things through the traveler. That's halfway on the stage, there's a curtain that sort of splits the stage in half. Some scenes used the entire stage, some scenes did not because they were too small and they're small bodies, and if you have so much space you actually lose the kids. So some scenes where you utilize different parts of the stage.
Right.
So I did that on purpose though, because we need them lit for safety, but I do want the audience to see.
Yes.
I want them to see how they work together. I want them to know what's going on. And despite it looking like a little loose and chaotic, like there's a lot of time to put that together, making sure who knows when and blah, blah, blah.
Absolutely.
And everybody by the end finally were able to pick each other up and know, and it wasn't just a free-for-all, like assigned people were doing these things, but it does really a lot of the time look like herding kittens. It really does. But then, it's like slowly but surely, like little chess pieces. It's like the whole board just gets set up, and it's really fun to see. And I know the kids are proud of that effort that they take, and I want the parents and the family and communities to also see what they're doing. It's not magic. We are working hard back here.
Yes.
So I wanted them to experience that on both sides of the curtain.
Yes.
With regard to things that I did not, or things that did not turn out how I expected, I really expected the kids to be more prepared going into our tech rehearsals than they were. That was something that I wasn't thrilled about. I wasn't happy about. I kept being, I wasn't mad at the kids, but I just was I told them so. I told them all this time, oh my gosh, we're going to be feeling this so hard. If they don't start coming, we're going to be hurting, we're going to be killing ourselves. And yeah, it was really, it was a challenge, as we've discussed. And I just really thought that, if you had asked me in the beginning of the year, when are the kids going to be ready? Going to be right, they're going to be all lined up before we head into tech and ready to go. That didn't happen. So I also learned that for myself, them not being ready so severely affected my anxiety and my ability to for me to feel like I had things together. I was really starting to struggle as the captain of the ship or whatever. I was we're steering this into an iceberg. I can't even see right now. My own anxiety really did kind of get in the way. It didn't impact the success or my ability to do what I needed to do, but by no means was it comfortable. And also we had a lot of challenges at the end of the tech, as we discussed, where I learned that I couldn't do it all as much as I think that I can, as much as I'm I could just get it done. When we're in the booth and my lighting mentor has to go because he has to go because we're running over, and we knew we'd run over a little bit. Then it's just me in the booth. I'm running the lights, I'm running the sound, I'm running this, I'm blocking, I'm doing that. And I was like, I can't, like, this isn't going to work. So I learned that I had to ask for help. I had to ask my husband, John, to step in and run our sound, and he did, and he was amazing. So did I expect that? I didn't expect that. I expected that my booth would just be intact and that everything would flow. And so these are the things that happen, but we worked it out, and luckily I had my support system in place, and he did an amazing job, and he took time, away from all of his things that he had to do to kind of run through the cues that we needed to run through.
Right.
So that was kind of like something I had to kind of like put my ego in check with a little bit, but that's okay. That's how we, that's all right. That's not a bad thing. I recognizing that we do have our, I don't want to call them shortcomings, but just kind of knowing when we are going to become so threadbare that we are no longer, useful fabric. Like, you have to know when
Absolutely.
to kind of, so I didn't expect it, but it worked out. And then a positive that I didn't expect that we were going to see Dave Babushkas on stage. I really didn't think so. I really, really didn't think so based on how our tech went and all of that. I just was like, holy cow, they did it. They pulled this off. And they did. It wasn't the strongest scene. I have some green actors. There was a lot of emotional management that I had to tend to amongst the members of the scenes, amongst the particular members of the scene, just with their own things that they were dealing with. And that's okay. It's all part of the process. But I really wasn't sure if this was going to make it. And it did. And it was cute. And they believed in it. And we were able to make it, as strong as it could be. And they did a really good job, and all of the members of that scene were also very relieved and more than relieved. They were proud. They knew that they had struggled along the way. They knew that, that they looked around and said, oh, our scene isn't maybe like the other scenes right now yet, at the last week or whatever. But they did it. So that was a positive of something I didn't expect, but they did it. So yay. And then things that turned out how I did expect, and they did indeed happen. I believed and I knew that the kids eventually would gel. And they did. It really took a long time.
Oh, yes.
It took almost, we were like, okay, now it's a crisis. If you don't do this, we're in big trouble. It has to happen. But no, they did gel, working many hours together with like an undercurrent of stress. Really kind of does that. You don't have a choice. At some point, it's just like, there was no more bickering, there was no more arguing, there was no more Mimi or this, that, or whatever. It just kind of was, everyone was like, the showcase, like, we're just going to pull this together. This is our work. And everybody jumped on board and believed in it. Everybody did what they needed to do. It was really cool to kind of see the kids step up in ways that they hadn't before. I had my mentors really... That's something that I expected that. I knew they were going to be amazing. I didn't realize how beyond my expectations they soared. I mean, I cannot believe how much these, for the 4 primary people that were really like my backstage and my lighting and all of this, I cannot believe how above and beyond they went. Like, it was no longer like me just telling them, oh, this needs to be done. It was like we were the team getting all of this going. And it was such a beautiful experience. So they were way above my expectations. I knew they'd meet them, but holy cow, way above.
Fabulous.
So, yeah. That's the main of expectation. And when did I realize that this was actually going to happen? Well, like 2 days before the show, I would say. Yeah, that's late to realize that. I wish it had been sooner. But we had our tech on Wednesday, the 29th. That was the first day after the break that we had. And as we know, we'd only seen this whole thing once, and there was no lights, no sound, no costumes, just props and set. And I mean, we were hell bent on getting it in. Like, no matter, we weren't going off of and celebrating Memorial Day without that happening. Not celebrating, honoring Memorial Day, of course. And so it was that first day when we got back and we had our lights, I ran the sound off of my phone because we didn't have complete setup, but it was just, I had the playlist that I did a lot of work over those 5 days to kind of just so that we could just walk in and do it, because I know that I had to have my end done. What we discussed in our last videocast about our tech week is it's not like just about the kids getting them ready. Like, we had so many jobs to do too. Like, we can't still be saying, you know, turn out this way and go over there and do this and no, open that curtain, close that curtain. Like, now it's like, we need to make sure that we are honoring their vision of what they had created in their minds. And we need the hours too. So
exactly.
Yeah, so on that end of that first Wednesday, we actually had our lighting cues intact. We actually had our sound cues, most of them. We could see what was happening, and the kids were able to run their show. Was it amazingly polished? No. We also had 1 day left, so it was like, it was as good as it was going to be. But that's when I did believe that it was gonna happen. That we had a show, we had enough tech to like make it be like, okay, this is, you know, we can be proud of this. This is good. It's not, none of this was in vain. Like, we're not gonna like not have the elements that we need now. It's just, you know, how tight will it be? But I knew we'd have a show. So yeah.
And I was thinking in my mind, oh, when in the actual show did it occur to you? I thought it was right up to the show, maybe, that you weren't sure.
Well, I mean, Thursday was, the next day was a whole new wave of anxiety, because then it's like Wednesday was so difficult because I didn't really know what I was walking into after the break, right? But I will say at the end of that day, I was like, okay, we have something. And Thursday was again, as we discussed, more anxiety just because it's the last day. We had over 60 light cues, over 30 sound cues. That's a lot for an hour show.
Wow.
Like, that's a lot. So yeah, you know, but you breathe, you keep pushing. They jumped on board with me, you know, like we had one more day to make it right after the realization that, okay, we have something, and we just drove it home. We literally just pushed and drove it home, and we knew we could all rest on the weekend, basically.
So how did that wind up manifesting, in your opinion, in terms of individual scenes and the overall production?
Yeah.
What would be your assessment?
I'm happy
coming out of it. Yeah,
I'm like really, really happy with it. You know, I think the kids, they really met the expectation in what I would have wanted them to. They came together. They believed in something. They all are way ahead of where they began. Some further along than others, but everybody brought it to the next level. Whether it was an acting context, you know, where all of a sudden, wow, now this kid's coming out, you know, now the character I can see, like saving it for performance a little bit. But I think to get the little nerves, you get an audience, all of that kind of does play into bringing everything up. But also just in the way of how they were working together, you know. We spend all this time making sure there's a leader and we follow this person. The whole goal is that we don't need one anymore. Like, the whole goal is that we all know what we need to do together. So when I said to them, it was our last warm-up, you know, before performance, I was like, all right, guys, like, let's get it together, warm it up. I go, you know what to do. And I just walked away, and I heard one of the kids be like, we don't need a leader, guys, let's just do it. And like, they just did it. And it was really great. And they took care of it. They just took it, you know. And that was really beautiful. And obviously, yes, as you mentioned, there was a lot of variance on skill that we witnessed, but to me, that's adorable. I mean, that's really cute. They're like 11. It's cute. Then you have the older kids that are definitely, you see, oh, like, this is how a kid might grow throughout their time in club as well. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's evident there that we have multi-levels, age-wise and skill-wise, of these kids that are making all of that work together. And it wasn't, if someone messed up, no one got nasty on stage. Like, we all are just supporting each other. And that was super apparent, too, you know. But yeah, just to know that the kids really had the compassion to kind of recognize when one of their peers needed a boost, and then they lifted them up, that was really beautiful to see. So in that realm, my heart is full with that, which is beautiful.
Especially after all of the work you've put in all year long to develop that sense of a true ensemble, to operate cohesively and coming back iteratively to that concept and trying to approach it from a number of different ways, and it sounds like it finally actually coalesced in the way you had hoped.
It did. I mean, it was hard work. But it did come together. But yeah, so the opening scene, it was fantastic. I thought it was super fun. They had like the opening of a drama club, and the old ladies come in. They're like, "What's happening in here?" And it's just really cute. Little sixth graders like playing these old ladies. One of them was honestly hilarious. I mean, they're both really cute. Yes. But one like had a voice and was like all hunched with like a cane and smashing her cane. It was hilarious. It was very funny. Like really was like freeing herself of any kind of like worries about, do I look silly? No, she like owned that and like dove into it. Yes. And all the kids were really supportive, and they brought the energy to it, you know, as we had like our fake pitch meeting where all the different scenes we're going to see, get a little highlight, get a little like as if the kids are pitching that, and then we see them, which was, I thought it was really functional. It was really successful. The kids had a good time doing it. The kids really made it their own too, which I thought was really cool, you know, really kind of captured who they were. They play characters the rest of the time, so this is when they get to be themselves on stage, and I thought, like, knowing them, that it came through. So for me, that was personally satisfying as well, because they were also highlighting who they were as individuals beyond the characters that they're playing. Day at Babushka's, it went through the ringer.
Oh, yes.
A lot of emotional management, a lot of literal script changes, and physically having to step in and help and make it work and take the reins a little bit and you know, steer the ship, because it was going to just, you know, crash into an iceberg. It had reached that tipping point, but we totally resurrected it, and the kids, you know, a lot of life lessons, I think, and I'm looking forward to actually talking to that group after, like at our cast party or something, about their experience too. Because I want to see what they discovered about themselves through this process. Because there was a lot of, you know, emotional stuff going on. Just not a lot of issues, you know, dealing with when things have to change and when we can't change anymore. That line was a really hard one to cross for some of our actors in that scene. And so I'm really curious to see what they feel about that now, knowing that it worked out and everything was really cute, really great. Like, where maybe, you know, moving forward next time, if I can talk with them and have them sort of articulate that, then now they have something inside backed by an experience that could support them next time. Not just in this work, but in anything.
That's right.
So that's something on that level I'm looking forward to touching base with them. Screen time scare, I will say, I think was one of the strongest scenes personally in terms of the functionality. I thought it was really cute. That, of course, is the one with our kids watching TV. They get sucked in and become part of the game show. If they lose, they become robots. And they then have to just continue their life all sucked into the technology, which, of course, is like a statement. You know, we call it screen time scare, like, and the girls go through this ordeal, and they're like, turn that thing off, like, after they escape and they get out, they're like, turn it off, boom, and then lights out, you know what I mean? Like, shut off, screen time off for once, kind of a thing. I really like the message, personally, but in terms of the way that it ran, it was clean, the arc was clear, it really flowed, the kids all knew their lines, despite losing two of our actors in Tech Week. Losing those two.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And honestly, that was madness, but we worked it out. So other kids stepped up and learned lines and characterized themselves. It was really beautiful. And the kids, I know this was when we had talked about the opportunity here for the robots and like really making something out of them and playing with voices and movement.
Did.
Yeah. So cute, right? Yeah, I thought it was really adorable. So they did a fantastic job. And open mic night, the three boys, hilarious. This was actually the group, and I'll mention a little more when we wrap up. They were the ones that wanted to do the cringe comedy and were struggling with how to do that, but they kind of did it. in the context of the style of stand-up and joke telling that they were doing, they used like awkward pauses and the little funny kind of side things at each other and creating the relationship where one was reacting to another like a little bit like, oh, that was a little, They actually were able to create that sort of vibe that they were looking for, which I know they were really, really happy about. And it was clear that they were having a great time and that they owned it. They knew it. You know, they captured, in my opinion, they captured the spontaneity because they rehearsed it, which I know sounds kind of paradoxical, but that's the nature of it.
That's it.
Yeah, and then, okay, so dead memes. I felt that we know that they had to overcome many, many challenges.
Oh, yeah.
And the variance of skill level was apparent on the stage, but it was also really, really endearing to watch the kids kind of stumble a little bit. No one messed up, per se, and that was another one. We actually had another kid, another casting replacement that had to occur in that one. So we had a student learning very quickly in that scene, too.
Right.
Yeah. But they really, really pulled it together. It became cohesive. We had our dance number with our lights and our little sassiness and all of this. Like, it worked out really well. I think we had discussed it, that main lead writer who played the Reaper. Yes. She really kind of helped glue everything a little bit. Mm-hmm. Her presence, I do believe, lifted the others in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. And that had sort of happened over the course of our text and pulling that scene together. The other one started, and with, of course, notes and things like that, everybody started to be lifted up. But it was good. She was kind of like an anchor, which I felt was really, really helpful. And she did so in a way, too, that was like respectful and honored the fact that we're not all at the same level. She was never like a diva, which I really appreciated, because clearly this child has experience, and it could have really been a situation where she'd be like rolling her eyes or all of that. And whether she was doing that on the inside, honestly, that's her business. I mean, but we don't do that on the outside. We are respectful to one another. Maybe she was frustrated or anything, but she didn't let it affect her, and she didn't take that. If she did have those feelings, she didn't express them to me, and she didn't take it out on anybody else. So I'm going to go with she was, all on board. But she handled that well if she was ever feeling any frustration, which I appreciated, clearly. Hunger Games.
Wow.
What did you think?
Wow.
It's cool, right? I thought it was cool.
I was noting how the kids utilized the entire space in the theater beautifully.
They did, yeah. We had the stage, of course, is where most of the battles took place. A lot of the action took place in the arena where all the fighting occurred, and various smaller scenes downstage left, downstage right. We had a home base for Katniss and Peeta, with a spotlight under the clock, and it was a little vestibule area within the auditorium that you can have lights on or lights off. So for the whole show, the lights were off, but lights on. For their scene, we turned those lights on. So just the doorways are lit, so they would enter as silhouette and then come to their center position, and the spotlight would come on. So that was really kind of cool. And then we also had the kids, when they were hunting for other kids that they are going to go capture or destroy, which I know it's very dark, very, very dark dystopian story, but they were way into it. They ran through the space with flashlights and strobe lights and all these things to kind of create that mood, and it was really awesome to see them. And Peeta, by the way, did not use his script. He memorized everything and did so beautifully. Yes, did so beautifully. But I was just so particularly proud of them because I know how much effort they put in from the very beginning all the way through. I know how much their heart was in this. I know the connection that they had to the story. They did all kinds of work with it in curriculum in their classroom. So I really wanted to honor all of that they put of themselves into this piece. The acting was really strong. The complex scene changes, which involve full cast, really, again, it happened. The jobs were delegated. It's sometimes and this is actually in professional theater too. Sometimes what was organized chaos just looks like chaos. You just don't know the organized part as an audience member. Right. So everybody had their roles. Everybody knew their jobs, and it all played out really beautifully. For me, having John step in for helping me with with the sound cues.
Yes.
This particular scene was the scene that I had in mind that I did not want to be the cause of it not going well, because we had only had a couple, 2 runs to attempt to do it, or whatever the case may have been in our text. So having John there really alleviated a lot of my stress, and really, and I think that was the right call on my part, to really recognize I can't do all of this myself, and that's okay. And so having him in the booth during this particularly complicated scene was, made that decision really, really quite worth it. These kids asked for a lot for this scene, and we wanted to deliver, and the message the words that they wrote about the message about not repeating mistakes of the past is very poignant. Like, I just really think that it's all around a very strong scene, and kind of encapsulates sort of all of what I was hoping for, having a voice and using it for a message you believe in, really stretching yourself artistically, taking things to the limit of where we can pull things off, and then really coming together to make all that happen. So that was really cool, because it was full cast effort. That's why I say that particularly about that scene.
Exactly.
And then we have the audition, which was so cute.
Yes.
Was it cute?
It was.
Cute. I thought all of them were cute. And Matilda, we had our little Matilda, got to be Matilda. Mm-hmm. And honestly, she did her little pratfalls, and it was good. She was so strong. I was so proud of her. This whole scene was basically, all the different types of people coming together, auditioning. We had some kids that were fighting over roles. We had a little girl, the Matilda character, who was like falling all the time, and then she's a pratfall person. We had all different kinds of types of people represented that might be involved in the theater auditioning for this play. And then at the end, we wonder who's going to get the lead, and nobody gets the lead. But that's okay, because what the director does is she goes through, well, I need this, and I need that in my play, and I need this in this play, I need that in this play. And all of you all together bring all of that to what we need, and are going to shape and create exactly what it is we're trying to do here. So the fact that they kind of came up with that message towards the end kind of really encapsulates sort of what we're doing in the first place. And of course, it was lighthearted and cute and fun, and not terribly, long. It was just a nice little capper. And I thought the audience really thought it was cute. I thought that it was a nice way to end the show. So overall, like, I am so happy. I'm so happy that, I have a lot of healing to do, because I'm exhausted. I'm so tired. I'm so tired. But my heart is so full, and I know that they're proud of their work, and so many of them said thank you to me, which honestly, like, I know that you would think they would just be like, oh, thank you, but like a lot of them kind of went out of their way to be like thank you, and I thought I wasn't expecting that. I just thought that was a really beautiful thing, and we have our little like speech at the end or whatever, and I make sure to thank the people that need it, and I always thank them. I thank them for their effort and their time and their open-mindedness and their stretching of themselves and allowing me to take them on this journey and all of that. So it was just a really beautiful experience to watch all that come together.
And it was wonderful to watch you jump on stage and go through the whole line of the cast and basically high-five or hug all of them. Yeah. And your excitement and pleasure and pride, to me, were so evident.
Yeah, it's very moving. Like, I really do get very teary. In the years past, I would have a little something that I would write or say, or I'd have like a longer director's notes, and as a tradition, before, I had that in this program too. A little shorter, though. I like to just, it's more about the kids themselves. I describe a little bit what the program is, all that we've been talking about in a kind of a paragraph or two. But in the past, I would write these pretty long notes, and I would, right before we go on opening night, I would read them to the cast, and then I would just be like crying. So which is fine, and I really get a little teary. I got a little teary, at the end of our preview. We had a school show too, which was fantastic. We just did the opening scene and did a talk back where the kids themselves talk with their whole entire student body about the process from the beginning all the way to where we are.
Wow.
Right before performance.
Fabulous.
Which is great, because I could stand there and talk about it, but I would much rather have them talk about it.
Absolutely.
So I preface with a little bit first in club we blah blah blah. It's who would like to share about that, and then just kind of went down the line of who wanted to. And I was able to do a little bit of that with at the end of the performance too. But we also have a whole display that I set up outside that takes anyone who hasn't heard that or had a conversation about that. They can just read and follow, and it's all the kids' samples of their work, of the arcs they've created, the concept collages they've created, of the various lighting cues that they've designed, of the set pieces that they know they need to have. If maybe there's those sketches and photographs and all of these kinds of things that I set up so that someone coming by can get a taste of what this whole process has been. Not just seeing the show, but they can see, oh my gosh, these kids went through all of this as well, and it really is about them and for them and by them, and that's really overall I couldn't be happier. I was really pleased that it all came together, and we were put through the ringer. I was so challenged.
Oh yes.
But I feel really good. I feel really good. So
well, that's amazing, and I think especially for our colleagues who have been following the process and knowing what it's taken out of you and how you've struggled with it, how sweet and satisfying, especially to have this kind of an outcome. So looking back over the drama club season, what do you feel that you have learned that will likely inform adjustments that you would make in the curriculum for the following year?
Well, we've discussed this, you and I, and scheduling is going to be something that I'm going to have to look at, because I don't know if it was just the dynamic of the group this year or I don't really know, but there wasn't as much attention to the fact that their schedule today, there's a rehearsal today and you should be there. So I have to figure out, there's two levels, culturally, amongst the group itself, whatever group I get next year, I need to gauge on where they're at with that and then see how hard I need to push regarding this is a responsibility of yours to be a part of this if you're choosing to do this, blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to need to have some kind of mandates in there that, and also stricter benchmarks where this literally is going to happen or it's not going to happen if it doesn't hit this date kind of a thing. I don't like doing that, but it was really, really hard this year. It was beyond typical challenge to get this off the ground this year.
Right.
And in direct relation to that, I also have to see where I can maybe delegate some things out. Not to say bringing a whole other, person in, but are there places where maybe parents can step in a little bit over here, or maybe I can have things delegated out in the beginning a little bit more clearly so that I'm not, hustling and asking my husband to please run lights because I'm going to cry. You know what I mean? Or whatever sound. Right. Things like that. So I'm going to have to know, I'm going to have to be honest with myself and know when I need to ask for help. And then I need to ask for it. Or at least figure out ways to manage when I need that extra push and extra help from outside sources. It was a real challenge for me recognizing that I can't really do it all. And that's reality. Not like I should be able to do it all. In the past, I've been able to do. This year was hard. This year I couldn't do it all.
Yes.
And that was a challenge for me to face and to follow through with. I did it. I was totally grateful when I did make that decision. So yeah. And then again, it's like a little domino effect. Better self-care towards the end.
Yes.
Yeah, I really, and we've said many variables caused this year to be pretty challenging. But towards the end, I really pushed myself probably beyond a limit that was reasonable.
Yes.
And I mean, it was fine. Everything happened. But I was telling you, I felt like Sisyphus, like so many times where,
yes.
at all that first tech week, I'm just like pushing up that hill, or that rock up that hill, and it would just come tumbling back down on me. And then by like the second week, I felt like I was the rock, like, you know what I mean? So I'm just going to have to really take better care of myself and recognize and create boundaries for myself.
Yes.
And also, and how you do that really is, for me, is to, not necessarily let that perfectionism or that vision steer me so directly. And that really is kind of what we've been talking about, like, let the process unfold, trust the process. And by the end, when you're so stressed out and so tired, it's almost like you still have this vision. You're like, no, I gotta hit it. I can hit it. I can hit the vision. But it's like, at what cost? You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
It turned out beautifully, and it was gonna be beautiful, no matter what it was gonna be, to a degree. I mean, we know where we needed to make sure things were done, but I have to be a little kinder to myself with regard to not saying it has to be this way, because it has always been this way. Like, I myself need to recognize that sometimes you plan something this way, and then it's still okay if it's over here like that. And that's something that I can have more awareness of next year as well.
So then, looking back over the year, and of course, we know we make meaning retrospectively. You've been sharing with us a great deal about your perspectives with regard to your experience of Drama Club this year. Is there anything further you would add when you pull the lens back and take a moment and think about it? How would you characterize the way you feel about the experience?
I feel like every single person that was involved in this dug a little deeper than we thought we had to or could at times. And we discussed this, as we do. As a group, we did talk about this. All the kids, myself, and the mentors, one of the last things we discussed before performing, that last sort of pep talk, that last time together, I said, how do you guys feel? And they were like, we did a whole inventory, nervous and and all of these things, and energized and exhausted and all of this. But really, we got through it. And the fact that they've learned how to support one another and really kind of like do something that no one really thought we were going to be able to do at one point.
Right.
I reminded them, and when we were finishing our curtain call, and I have the brief talk that I do on stage, I keep it brief. Right. I do have the kids, I say, kids, what's your motto? And all of them now yell, commitment, focus, respect. And that is what transcends the stage. The stories, we can watch the video, all of that, the scenes are adorable, but like what really comes with them, I'm believing, based on how they dug deep and really turned this out as a unified group, that's what they're carrying with them off the stage and into the rest of their lives, and to the facets of their lives. Just watching them talk to each other and knowing one might be nervous because we did an emotional inventory. The one's like, oh, you're going to be great. It's going to be awesome. I know when you do this, it's so fantastic. Like, you got this,
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and then watching one of my kids who, used to be one of my main kittens I'd have to chase. Like, he's now, backstage before the show start, walking around and making sure that, all the props are in their place so that everything was where it needed to be when people needed it. And, that's totally a step way beyond than where he began, where he would potentially be the one like losing something, not on purpose, but so like we've come really, really far in that respect. So, recognizing that we've created something beautiful, we've created something original that was never there before.
Exactly.
And we all, became higher up than when we started on this artistic journey, is really something very special. So
I'd say mission accomplished.
Yeah,
without question.
You did a great job.
And I would like to thank Allie for joining me in our project to really delve into all facets of the creative process, as we say, technical, psychological, and contextual, to better understand it, to help our colleagues better understand not only Allie's process, but to take from it the tools to better understand their own. And undoubtedly, for me, it has been a remarkable learning experience, and again, kept reminding me to do the same with my process. So, Allie, we wish you well in all of your endeavors, and who knows if we may get together yet again at a different point in time. But thank you for watching this entire 8 months and following the process longitudinally. And remember, you can go back to the Process in Real Time website and see every single videocast in order to catch up where you might have missed, to perhaps review what you'd like to study a little bit further, and certainly I think to go through it and I'm sure come to the same conclusions that Allie has done tonight upon reflection. So yeah, mission accomplished. Yay.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much
for being with us, and have a good night.